the Monday Morning Show. Welcome. Come on in. I'm Ken LaSalle, and you can usually find me on kenlasalle.com, on Audible, Amazon, iTunes, etc. But very soon you'll find me on the Pacific Crest Trail. That's right, I'm going. My start date is on April 28th, and I'm going to try just as hard as I can not to quit until after I've left Campo. Now, I thought I would spend most of this show talking about the PCT, but something else has happened in my life to take my attention off of that very briefly. Actually, this all started back in February, and it's been going on for a couple of months, so it's not actually that brief at all. Back in February, I tore my right rotator cuff doing push-ups. I was doing push-ups because I wanted to start getting in shape for the PCT. I thought I'd give myself a couple of months to get broken in, and I'd be fine. But I was doing push-ups, and I heard this loud crunch come from the general vicinity of my shoulder. And after the doctor told me I had torn my rotator cuff, I had to spend a week immobilized so I could heal. That week passed, and I decided to start getting into shape. Now, back then, I would jog. And if you're a regular listener to this podcast, you'll know why I said back then. For those who don't know, I herniated 3 discs in my cervical spine last month, and that took about a month to recover from. But I healed, right? No more jogging, but I healed. And last week, I decided it was time to start getting into shape. Hell, it was past time. I decided to put on a pack and start walking around the city. I put as many hills into my route as I could manage, and I started with 4 miles and a 9-pound backpack on the first day. On the second day, I walked 5 miles with 10 pounds, then 6 with 15, then 7 with 15. This past Tuesday, I hiked 8 miles with 18 pounds. I thought I was doing pretty good. Unfortunately, I was feeling this twinge in my neck, and after all the health problems I'd been facing, I didn't want to have to worry about it. Since it was right under my jaw, I decided to mention it to my dentist when I went to see her on Friday. Friday couldn't have come fast enough because that twinge turned into a full-on pain in the neck, so much so that I couldn't sleep at all on Thursday night. My dentist found nothing, so I headed on over to a nearby urgent care center. I would have gone to my general practitioner, who I really like. The only problem is her calendar is always so full. It isn't unusual to have her office schedule you months away. I called to schedule my physical last year in May and couldn't get in until August. True story. So there I was at the urgent care center. My throat was swabbed for strep because they can't be too careful if there's a lab fee they can pick up. It didn't matter that I told them it wasn't my throat but my neck. By the way, if you've ever wondered what the whole swabbing the throat thing is all about, I can tell you, it sucks. They basically take one of those long cotton swabs, the kind on a 3-foot stick. They tell you to say "ah," and then they plunge that stick as far as they figure they can go and still be able to retrieve it while you're in the process of throwing up. Whole lot of fun, that one. They also x-rayed my neck. And then the doctor comes in. Turns out I had a cyst in my neck. What the hell's that about? According to the doctor, you can just get cysts. I'd never had one before, and I certainly hadn't given my body permission, but, I'm 50, so... After my doctor tells me about my cyst, though, he goes on to say, "Yeah, I took a look at the x-rays and the MRI they took on your spine, and I gotta tell you, wow, huh?" I wasn't entirely sure where he was going with that. It sounded a lot like, "I took a look at your murdered wife, and I gotta tell you, wow, huh?" So I repeated back, "Wow?" The doctor says, "Well, all that degeneration and arthritis in your discs. You're a real mess." Let me tell you, this guy had a winning bedside manner. He went on to say, "You must have had a hell of a childhood, huh?" "No, I don't remember having that remarkable of a childhood." "You must have jumped out of a lot of trees." "Well, yes, of course." "You must have had a lot of accidents, crashed your bike a lot." Of course, check." "You must have gotten into a lot of scraps." Double check. But here's the thing I don't think he understood. Sure, I did all of those things. We all did all of those things. We jumped out of trees and off of rooftops. Hell, we jumped out of moving cars when we thought we could manage it, even if we couldn't. Did I crash my bike? Listen, my first bike didn't have brakes. The only way I could stop was to crash. And I was a scrawny kid with glasses and a smart mouth. Of course I got into a lot of scraps, mostly on the receiving end, but certainly no more than any other child. Right? But then, as my night wore on, other memories started creeping into my mind. Such as the time when I jumped off of the third story of a parking structure. Full disclosure, the first floor was almost halfway underground, so that made it closer to 2.5 stories. And Sean Roberson, my dear friend from high school, who I have since lost, this great teddy bear of a guy, he's down on the ground and he looks up at me leaning over the railing and he says, "Don't jump!" And me, being a scrawny kid with glasses and a smart mouth, and a monumental lack of judgment, and a constant need to be at the center of attention, I said, "Jump?" And I'm over the railing before he can say anything in reply. And I'm falling. And I know the best way for me to land is on the balls of my feet. They take the initial shock. I tuck and roll with the impact, and I'm good. But before I'm even halfway down, I think, are you sure it's the balls of your feet and not your heels? Wouldn't it be better if you land on your heels? I'm in the process of thinking, well, that surely can't be right, when I land on my heels. And I can feel the reverberation, the shock of the impact launch its way up my legs, up my spine, up my neck. My entire body goes limp, and I really thought I was screwed. And I would have been if not for Sean Roberson. Because I landed in the middle of a street, and I was ready to collapse right there. Who knows if a car would have even seen me before running me over? But Sean grabs me and holds me up. I can barely walk at that point, but he manages to help me over to a bench. Fortunately, my legs recovered after about an hour. I thought that my greatest risk was to my legs, but now I'm realizing how much damage that probably did to my spine. And then I recall riding my bike at 9 or 10, riding it right into a suspended metal cable that was right in my path. I never saw it until after I hit it, and it hit me square in the neck. My bike kept going, but I was thrown. And for over a week, I had a burn mark that looked like I had been lynched. That cable must have been half an inch thick. And then more memories start flooding in. Times when I had disregarded my safety, my health, and even my life. In my own defense, nobody ever tells kids, "Be careful, or you might face crippling spinal degeneration in your old age." And having said it out loud, I can see why. I always thought I'd break a leg or something. And remembering these times, such as the time I rode a moped straight into the back of a van which I collided with head first, I realized that that urgent care doctor was not far from the mark. I haven't exactly lived a life that has been easy on my body. I also shattered my right arm while rollerblading. I also smoked for far too many years, and drank until my liver nearly sued for irreconcilable differences. But the fact remains, I have lived. You know, I often wonder about the kind of life I have led. I mean, I never traveled as much as I had hoped, and I certainly didn't make love to as many young women as I had intended. I never starred in enough shows when I was an actor. And in the time I had when I could still run, you'd think I would have run at least one marathon. Now, I can't run anymore, and I'll never mark that one off of any list at all. But having said that, this tactless doctor in the urgent care center turned me on to something I had completely forgotten about. Some people say, live hard because you never know when your moment will come. And now I realize I did live hard. I do live hard. I've got the scars to prove it. And maybe I haven't done everything I wanted to do, but you know what? I've done more than some people. Some people haven't starred in any shows or traveled at all or risked their life on the back of a moped or jumped off of a 3-story building. And maybe some of those things aren't exactly the kind of thing most people want to do. But I can tell you that there was a moment during that fall when I actually had a chance to realize I was in midair. I had enough time to take it in. And it was beautiful. I imagine skydiving is like that. And I further imagine that having a parachute must be nice. And in just 11 days, I will be setting out to hike the first 350 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail, something I've wanted to do for many years. If everything works out, and I find I actually enjoy it, I'll return to the PCT in 2017 to try and hike the whole thing. Fun, enjoyment, happiness. These things all come at a price. We might not know what the price is when it is incurred, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't have fun. It just means we need to accept that payment will one day be due. Now, I have just one more podcast before I leave for the PCT, and in that one, I'll catch you up on what's happening in my writing career and further updates on my PCT preparations. By the way, today I hiked 10 miles with a 21-pound pack. Most of the weight was from water because I wanted to weigh down my backpack with about as much as I could manage. I ended up getting one blister, but I did the duct tape trick, which I think actually paid off. I don't know if I'll do it on the trail, but it was nice to see that duct tape can pretty much do anything. And I know that the hiking is only going to get harder, especially when I get on the trail. This podcast will go silent when I'm gone, but once I get back, we'll catch up on what's happening in the world. Until next time, be good to yourself, be kind to others, and let's make this world a better place.